I'm Megan Waldrop, host of the Partners of Commercial Fishermen podcast, an extension of an online community for partners to connect and feel less alone. Our podcast invites fishermen, family, friends, and supporters of the industry to learn, laugh, vent, and hear stories about this incredibly unique way of life. What do you say? Let's dive in. Hey, Partners of Commercial Fishermen. I'm so happy to be back in Wilmington, North Carolina and chatting with you. I was gone for about 3 weeks and have since adjusted back, although it wasn't super easy this time of year or this season. I had to remind myself that every season is different and not to be so hard, because sometimes, Chris will be gone and I'm like, all right, see ya, have a great season. And sometimes it's just me wandering around like, how did I get through it last time? And that's kind of what happened this one. So today I'm going to share a bit about our adventure out west, because I drove with him to California. And then I'm going to share helpful tips that help me get back into my groove as a solo POCF. And I hope it helps you too if you ever find yourself in one of those situations where you're like, wait, why am I not flowing like I normally flow? Let's get you on your flow. All right. First, the road trip. So I decided to go and spend a few extra weeks with Chris via our road trip to California. So he drives to California to and from every year to go to the fishery. We're in Wilmington, North Carolina. He drives to California to basically the Channel Islands fishery out there. It's outside of Santa Barbara and Ventura, California. We used to live out there together. So last year was the first year I didn't go out there with him during the fishery. And this is our second year doing this super long distance, 26,000, not 1,000, feels like 1,000, 2,600 miles between us. And last year, I think it was different for me because I was excited. We had just got this house and I was ready to settle in. I had plans. My friends were coming in town to see one of our favorite bands. They were coming to Wilmington. And so I had things on the horizon. And this year, it was a little different. But regardless, we'll get to that. I wanted to do the road trip because I wanted to spend more time with them. And also, I freaking love our van life. It's so much fun. We have a Sprinter van that's barely built out. It's nothing fancy. It's not one of those like house on wheels that you see. Chris literally just put a bed platform in there. We have a mattress, and he has a new really freaking cool, awesome cooler that he bought for the boat, but he also uses for the van too. You can plug it in, and so it acts like a refrigerator. It looks like a cooler, but it acts like a refrigerator. It's a freaking game changer. Now I have to deal with that ice and emptying the water and getting stuff all soggy, and you know how it goes. So, I mean, even though we do this trip, sometimes we go on these incredible adventures. Like last time we drove together, we did the entire Route 66, and that was super fun. We've, gone segued into desert hot springs. We've, gone on different trails in different parts of the country. We've gone to New Orleans. We've, tried to make it fun on this trip. But this trip was not about the fun. It was more about getting to California. So we went on I-40 and we just breezed through. And instead of like, I feel like Instagram versus reality. Instagram, people in van life, they open the doors and you see like the ocean or the Blue Ridge Mountains, and you wake up to this amazing scene. And what we woke up to we were at truck stops and visitor centers, straight up. Like it wasn't anything fancy, but to me, I don't care if we're in a grocery store parking lot. It's just that sense of adventure that van brings. It's so much fun to just cozy up in that bed together, watch a movie or read books to go to sleep, and just feel like we're in our own little world. We have these these protective, like the sun shields that go over the windows and the front, on like the front screen, what's it called? The front windshield. And we're just kind of locked in. So we feel really secure. We lock the van. We park under very bright lights in areas that aren't very remote. So we feel secure. And yeah, we're just like in our own little world. And I love it so much. And, generally this year we did books on tape, or we chat to pass the time, and generally take in the scenery and being nowhere and everywhere at once. And it's just so nice to have that freedom from schedules or obligations we'll get there when we'll get there. And it usually takes us about 5 days to drive. And we're driving, like 8 to 10 hours a day in our sweet little Sprinter that, Chris drives very cautiously and like a grandpa. So we're, we range between like 55 miles an hour and maybe 70, like maybe. But this time, what was really helpful, and we're going to talk about this in a different episode, but we prepped the food before we took off, and we had everything we needed. It was so awesome. And this food prep is great for provisioning for boats. And the reason I chose these items is because they last in the fridge from 3 to 5 days. But we were able to have all our meals inside the van, and that really saved not only a ton of money, but a lot of time, because in the past, we'd segue and be like, all right, where's the nearest Whole Foods or the nearest healthy grocery store that has a hot bar? Where is a healthy restaurant that we can pull over? And just that time to go find it, sit down, get served, or go to the store, like that just, it adds a lot to your trip, and then you feel like you're just kind of behind. But this one, we were just breezing on through. It's not like we got there a day earlier, but we felt more relaxed, and that was super great. So that's a whole other podcast I'll share with you, because if you provision for your fishermen and get things ready for the boats, that'll be a great one for you. So also I want to shout out to America. Okay. The fact that it takes 5 days to get from one end of the country to the other is pretty freaking awesome. I mean, what a huge, vast country that we have. Even if you drive the I-40 interstate, you get such a beautiful view. And I feel like I-40 or any interstate drives get a bad rap, but no, you're there to experience the terrain. You go from the lush green of the Carolina coast to the Smoky Mountains and then the plains of Oklahoma and Texas. It's incredible to think like, oh, you're in this really green foresty area, and then it's just nothing except just horizon, land to the horizon, as vast and expansive as the ocean. It's really moving in its own beautiful way. And then you drop into the deserts of New Mexico and Arizona and California, and it's a spiritual, beautiful feeling within that. And if you've been out to the Southwest, just those mesas and being on a different planet, it almost feels like, and being on land that has been there before anybody has ever known it, but also to honor the native tribes that have lived there and that has been their land. It's just incredible to experience and be a part of that. And then when you get to California, it's desert out in California, but then you start winding through the mountains and you hit the Pacific Ocean, and it literally hits you. You're on the edge of America. You made it to the end of your trip. And the only things farther than those cliffs and that road that you're driving along are the Channel Islands, where Chris fishes for spiny lobster each year. It's just beautiful. And if you haven't planned a road trip out west yet, if you're on the east or middle of the country, or maybe you're in a different hemisphere or a different country, please come to America. Please journey out west. I encourage you to keep it on your to-do list. If you can sleep in your vehicle, van, or RV and pack food, the only real expense is fuel. You could also obviously have some money to go eat out if you want occasionally, or whatever, however you want to plan your trip. And we'll talk about that later, but it is doable. It doesn't have to be this really daunting, driving across America. It is accessible to you. And I highly encourage you to try it. It's such a cool vacation. You don't have to fly to other countries to have that profound experience and to have that quality time with your loved one. So yeah, being in California for me was a trip. I wasn't really sure how I'd feel. I was the first time I'd been in California since we moved back east about 1.5 years ago. And before we had moved, I had been out west for a decade, since I packed my car in Charleston, South Carolina, and set out for a new life in California that I had no freaking idea what I was going to do, but I knew that I wanted to write, and that was going to be my goal. Figure out how to write. I got a job at a little retail store in Montecito, and then I ended up, hustling for different papers around town, and then eventually got a permanent position as editor at a local paper, Santa Barbara Sentinel, RIP the Sentinel. But on that note, that was such a huge decision for me to make. And I'm sure y'all have heard this if you've been listening to the podcast, but that was such a huge transformation for me, because I was not only leaving, the East Coast, I was also getting away from a huge alcohol addiction that I had. And I wanted to start a new life. And I eventually did kick that bad habit while I was out in California and got to actually become a writer. And returning to that space was super interesting. I wasn't the same Megan I had been when I first arrived to California. And I wasn't the same Megan that I was when I left California. And it was like all of those Megans hit me at once. They say you can't go home again, and maybe that's a good thing. The phrase isn't speaking to the direct location of home, but who you are as a person when you return there. It's like, who are you now? You are who you are right now. And I know that sounds like duh, but no. If you've ever returned to a place that you've lived, or maybe you've visited like your old schools or, anything like that, there is that chance of this does feel familiar, yet it still seems foreign to me because it's changed, because I've changed. So, one of my favorite things to do when I was out there, I'd pick up all the papers and magazines I used to write for. And it was really cool to see all the small businesses that are still running and what the local artists are doing. And it was almost like a yearbook reading a past life. I'd see the writers that I worked with and seeing what they were up to. And I loved seeing their styles and getting familiar with them again. It was like visiting old friends, And it was also just by kind of like a chance for me to pat myself on the back. Like, okay, you're no longer a journalist in California. And this is, you've done this. Thank that past. Feel gracious and gratitude for that experience, because it's brought you to where you are and where you're going, that you have no idea what that's going to be like. And within our POCF community, I feel like I always have hope, and I'm always excited about our future, even though I don't know what that's going to bring, but I always feel that there's something good's going to happen because we are together. We believe in ourselves. We believe in each other, and there's got to be greatness that comes from that. So, I spent a week out there. So I was out there for, let's see, it took us 5 days to get out there. I was out there for about a week and a half-ish, 2 weeks. So, but my Fisherman, it was a great trip. Overall, it was amazing. But my Fisherman was half present from probably a week before, 2 weeks before we left Wilmington, and definitely have present in California because his mind was on fishing. And I'm sure a lot of partners of commercial fishermen are going, yeah, I totally know what that feeling is like. Once that clock starts ticking, that fishing season's about to start, they're thinking about all kinds of stuff. They're thinking about building gear. They're thinking about, do they have enough, whatever it is, I don't know. Got to get this permit, make sure the taxes on the boat are paid, got to scrub the bottom hole, got to make sure the deckhands lined up. I mean, the list goes on. So, my favorite thing to do, one of my favorite things to do is to help him in some way to prepare for the season. So the easiest low-hanging fruit for me is to paint buoys. And I helped him paint buoys like I had in the past. And it was nice to work together, even though we were separate at times because he was working on other boat projects, but we were working towards the same goal, which is for a successful and safe spiny lobster season. And yes, I was painting the buoys and putting prayers and vibes over them for his safety, for the bounty of the lobsters that come in, and to just overall abundance and goodness for everybody involved. And painting buoys is really freaking meditative. And, commercial fishing can be so monotonous, yet there is the flip side of that is the calming and the meditation that comes with it. And I'm glad I got to participate and feel like I could contribute to him in some way before he basically busts his ass for the entire season. And the truth is, as much as I knew I'd miss Chris, deep inside, I was looking forward to coming back to North Carolina. And it has nothing to do with him. I'm going to miss him. I wish he was here in North Carolina too. But while I was in California, my sister sent pictures of my nephews in our family group chat like she always does. And I realized how sad I would be to stay in California and miss a chunk of their lives like I had in the past. They're only young for so long, and I want to be their aunt. I want to be their active aunt, or tia as they call me, which is Spanish for aunt, because half Puerto Rican, represent. But even if I'm not with them every day while I'm in North Carolina, just being right down the road and popping over for a family dinner for one of Mac's sporting events feels like such a gift, especially during a lobster season when I know that my husband is going to be in and out. He'll be, he'll come in late, have dinner, whatever. Honestly, like, yes, I would love to be with him. I would love the best of both worlds. However, for this felt really supportive to know that, okay, I do have a home to come back to and my family's here. And that was really great. So I said goodbye to Chris. I didn't cry. We didn't cry at the airport. He dropped me off at LAX super early in the morning. We got to have a beautiful drive down the Pacific Coast Highway to get to the airport. I watched the sunrise, and it was just a lovely little send-off. And yeah, we said goodbye, and he was off to the races. You know, he went back to start building traps, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to, well, I was flying into Charleston. So I was like, oh, good. I get to fly into Charleston. My mom's going to pick me up. We're going to have dinner. So I had an event going on, if you will. I had plans, and I was excited to see my mom and connect with her. However, when I got back to our home in North Carolina, it, like I mentioned, it wasn't so easy, and it kind of felt daunting. And I was like, how the hell did I do this before? Like, this feels like a point where depression would creep in for me. And that is something that I am susceptible to. It not only runs in my family, but, you know, it happens to human beings sometimes. And I do have some tricks in my pocket that help me get through these darker times. And as soon as I started to feel like I was going to get there, I remembered these tips that I got from not only people in our Partners of Commercial Fishermen community that has been amazing to be a witness to for the past almost 5 years now, maybe over 5 years. I want to say it was generally started, I think our private group was started in 2019, but we had been talking about this since 2018. So really about 6 years, which is wild, y'all. So here is the mental checklist that I used that helped me get through to where I am today, which is I feel that I am thriving in my solo POCF life. And in a week ago, I did not know how the hell I was going to get here. But this is a list of things that I hope helps you too, that helped me recalibrate into my amazingness. Okay. Because you are amazing and you need to stay in that zone. If you're, you know, there's no reason to not feel how badass you are. Okay. It's okay to, you know, have moments where you don't feel like that, but really let's just get back on track. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe you pulled over a little bit, like, no, get back on the road, your awesome road. And this is how I did it. And I hope it helps you too. So I slept in for the first few days. Not only did I have jet lag, but I also felt like I want to sleep in. Okay. Like I work from home, which makes it a little easier. And what else was great was that it was Labor Day weekend. So it worked out pretty well for me to slowly settle and not feel like I was behind, which, by the way, feeling behind is such a construct. Like, are we ever really behind? Let's just let that thought, you know, marinate. So sleeping in, like giving yourself grace to sleep in or just take it easy. Woke up, wore a robe all day. Maybe not all day. I wore a robe till about 1 p.m. Like I was making lunch in my robe. Okay. Woke up, I was like, I don't feel that I need to get dressed. Like I want to chill. So that's what I did. Then I made plans with my family. We celebrated my sister's birthday, my nephew's first day of school, and then I had plans to have dinner with my mom and her friends. So it was nice to have something outside to get me out of the robe and to be around people that I love and to feel social. I also checked in with our private group chat, you know, simply asking questions about writing a crew contract, which I'm writing up a contract for Chris for his new deckhand, and getting advice from other POCFs was so comforting because I know that I'm not alone and they've been there, and just their general voices. I mean, you know, when people say you have a voice when you write, like when you read these texts from your other POCFs, it's so freaking comforting. You're like, oh yeah, they've been there. They know what it's like. I'm not alone. The private group chat is amazing. I'll put a link in the show notes if you're ever interested in joining. I just dropped the monthly rate. It's super low now, and I would be thrilled to have you aboard. And if you're a private forum member and you're listening to this, you're automatically in the private group chat if you want. I've sent links out before, but if you haven't received it, let me know. I want to plug you in. It's just so great. I journaled and just wrote down my thoughts like, okay, this is what happened for the trip or things that I wanted to remember, just getting it out. It was nice to just have that moment. And I also worked in different places in the house. I didn't go into my office for a whole week. I'm right now talking to you on our kitchen table. Normally I would do this in my office, but I was like, you know what? I'm kind of feeling spicy. I'm going to go and do it in the kitchen. Makes me feel good. If you go into the office or you work outside the home, try taking a different route or plan a lunch break somewhere new or take a quick 5-minute walk, anything to break up your old routine as you settle into the newness of the season, because it's different every time. Like, why not switch it up? It keeps things exciting. It keeps things less boring. Like, oh, now I'm going to go and to do this like I always do. Like, it's just switch it up, yo. I mean, just even taking doing your walk that you normally do if you're a walker, doing the route backwards. I mean, simple things like that it just adds a little something, and it definitely does help. Okay, this is another one. I reorganized my home to my liking, and let me tell you, it made such a difference. Even the small things like using my favorite vintage dish towels that I like that Chris generally does not like to use, and keeping the counters clear and not having an iPad or phone chargers everywhere. I mean, yeah, I'm a little type A, but like this brings me joy. When I walk in, I'm like, oh, look how good it looks in here. It looks just like how I like it. Look at that vintage dish towel. Look at that new soap that I put in the shower. I mean, just fresh flowers. That's the other thing. Another one is fresh flowers. I forget what they're called, but they're flowers. They're really inexpensive and they last for weeks. And I cannot remember what their name is. You probably know it. You probably would recognize it. But anyway, just get some fresh flowers and put them around your house. It just adds a little sparkle. Or get a new house plant if you're not a flower person. Just like a little tiny, even if it's like a little succulent, just to put on your counter or on your windowsill or in your bathroom. It's just little things that bring you joy that doesn't cost a lot of money. So then another thing I did was I got back, yoga. I do yoga. I practice yoga every day. And it was nice to be back in my yoga space. I have a little sunroom that I've dedicated to my yoga room. And it was just so nice to be in there and dedicate more time to that and my spiritual practices like meditation and reading spiritual texts. I like to read different spiritual texts every Sunday. So, I mean, we're talking right now I'm reading a book called The Yoga of Jesus. It's about Jesus's lost years in India. It's actually written by the man who wrote the autobiography of a yogi. He's Hindu based. I wish I had more information, but I'm still learning about it. So these things interest me, and I love reading about different religions and different spiritual beliefs because it helps me feel more connected to myself, a higher power, God, whatever you want to call it. And also makes me feel less alone, honestly. It just makes me feel more grounded. And then yard work. Okay. For the reason that I just could not stand to look at it anymore, I mowed our big old backyard and front yard in 90-degree heat because there was rain coming and I did not want the lawn to be soaked, and I wouldn't have been able to mow it for like a week after that because it projected, 7 days of rain, which of course didn't happen. But, and to keep the bugs at bay, I just I need to do this now. 90 degrees, sweated my ass off. Okay. But man, after I was done and my face was beet red, I've never been that beet red before. It felt freaking empowering, and it's amazing to look out in the yard and be like, I did that. That is great. Usually Chris does it, and I'll weed whack here and there, but no, I got after it and I thought, hell yeah, Megan, you did this. It looks freaking awesome. I'm looking at it right now because I'm in my kitchen and I can look at it over there. And then afterwards, I took a nice shower and I got back in that robe and I put a face mask and eye mask on. I had a face mask and then I had an eye mask. And the next day I had an eye mask. And then the next day I put a face mask on, like little things to treat yourself. So good. Gardening. I pruned all the dead flowers. What do you call it? Deadheaded and leaves. And, we were gone for 3 weeks. So the grass was, I want to say, like 6 inches high. And a lot of our plants had shriveled. So it was nice to just kind of get back to where it looks nice and neat and lived and loved, lived in and loved. And then, so I got a book. about a commercial fishing couple. It's this book by Tessa Bailey. Actually, it was this DM. Someone slid into my DMs last year and told me about this author who wrote 2 books. She's written a lot of books, but wrote 2 little rom-com books about sisters who end up falling in love with commercial fishermen in the Pacific Northwest. And it's like a rom-com, excuse me. It's like a silly little love story rom-com, but it's really fun and light and has a happy ending. And it was a great way to segue into this solo life too, because also it was like a romance novel and I wasn't expecting it. And it got hot sometimes. I was like, holy shiz. Anyway, I'll put her books and link it in the show notes too. But that was just really fun to be like, okay, I'm going to go, do whatever I do. And then at night before I go to bed, I read. So it was nice to have that book to go to. And it was fun because it was about a commercial fishing couple and we totally understand what it's like. And she actually does a pretty good job about explaining the lifestyle, especially in the first one. It's called It Happened One Summer. And the second one is called Hook, Line, and Sinker. But the It Happened One Summer was pretty great. She really dives into the lifestyle. It was really fun. So yeah, like I said, I'll put it in the show notes. Then I chose some Netflix or Apple TV series that I wanted to binge or whatever you watch, whatever program or platform you watch it on. It was so fun. So Netflix, I watched A Man in Full. It was based on a Tom Wolfe novel. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it was worth it. It was like a 6-episode series. And then I just finished Lady in the Lake on Apple TV, and that was really good. It was a twist at the end I was not expecting, and it was also a limited series, but it was fun to just like watch 1 or 2 at night and go read my book and go to bed. I also cooked really good food for myself and enjoyed the process. I used new recipes. Like my new thing right now is creating homemade salad dressing because, by the way, it's super freaking easy and they taste so much better than store-bought. But yeah, I made some new salad dressing so I could have my own homemade chicken Caesar salads. I made garlic butter pasta with lots of hard cheese on top or sharp cheese. So freaking yummy, and it was decadent. It was great to have these for myself. I also have bars of chocolate in the fridge so I could break it off for dessert. Cut up some fruit salad for dessert. Yes. Just because your fisherman's gone doesn't mean you need to skimp on creating amazing meals. And also, just because your fisherman's gone doesn't mean you have to actually create meals. If you want to order out, do it. You want to make a PB&J Sando or have some cereal for dinner, do what you got to do. That's fun too. Do what you want. Switch things up. It's a new season for you, which means it's like a whole new chapter in your book as a POCF, and you can create however you want to do it. You don't have to do anything that you've done in the past. You can do you. Okay? That is what I'm talking about. And so right now, as I'm speaking to you, I'm planning for an upcoming conference that I'm going to be a part of. It's called the Ocean Innovations Conference, and I'll have a table for partners of commercial fishermen. I'm really excited to share it with the Wilmington, North Carolina community and beyond. This is people are coming nationwide for this. I'm planning some live music shows. I'm actually going to one this Saturday by myself because y'all know I love to go to concerts solo. I mean, I love going with my friends, but I also love going by myself too because you can just get lost in the crowd. You don't have to worry about if anybody's having a good time. You could stand wherever you want. You can stand in multiple places if you want. You can crowd watch. I mean, it's like the best. Don't get hammered, okay? Don't get hammered so you can get yourself home. Or if you do drink, like take an Uber. I don't drink, so I just go. But it is, I can't wait. I'm really excited. I'm going to see my favorite band ever, Susto, Susto. Listen to their first album. It's a game changer. It's like if Nirvana grew up in the South and had religious trauma, or as one of my friends says, it's like grunge folk. It's songwriting's incredible. Susto, y'all. I've talked about them before, but anyway, stoked I get to see them. And then planning visits with friends in the future. So these are all things that have really helped me stay buoyant and excited about this new season and this new chapter in my POCF life. And I hope that this is some way helpful for you too. And if you have any additions, I'd love to hear from them. To be continued, honestly, for me, I'm on day 11 of the solo life at the time of this recording, and I have about 189 days to go, which is crazy to think about. But also I'm like, oh, that doesn't seem that long to me. There's 365 days a year. That would seem longer. 189. I got this. We good. I hope to visit Chris out in California at least once, and hope to have him home for Christmas. And, until then, I'll just be doing my thing. Whatever I need to do to make me happy, that's healthy habits and not going down the spiral. And if I start to feel like I'm veering, if that depression starts creeping in, I know what I can do. I can go through this list and be like, okay, what cherry pick? What's going to help me today? What's going to help me today? That's the other thing. You don't have to do all these at once. That would be insane. It's so overwhelming. Do like one thing or do two things if you're feeling crazy. I mean, honestly, I feel like the face masks, just like start simple. Oh, and the face masks, pro tip, put them in your fridge. I'm sure you might know this, but the eye masks and the face masks, put them in your fridge. OMG. So good. So anyway, I really, really hope that this has been helpful for y'all. And thank you for helping me. You guys give me purpose to keep going in so many ways. And I could get all emo talking about it because y'all know I do. And I just truly appreciate having this relationship with you, whether we've actually spoken on DM or through emails, or maybe we've met in person, or maybe we haven't met at all, but just knowing that there's a connection to you and we have this together, this unique life that we share. Even if maybe you're not a POCF and you listen in, the fact that you even care enough to want to learn more about this lifestyle is amazing. Eat wild caught seafood. We are the faces behind these catch. Whenever you buy wild caught seafood, you help support families like me and others in our community and help us bring the most quality premier protein to the world. So much nutrition, so good for your body and your soul. So that's what we're here for too. Partners of Commercial Fishermen, our community is here for your heart and soul. And we got you. This is our unique life, and how incredible that we get to experience it together. Till next time, y'all, with love and POCF pride. Thank you so much for listening. To support our community, I'd so appreciate it if you'd tap the subscribe button to this podcast or write a review. And if you're a POCF who wants to connect further, go to POCFpride.com for weekly blogs and to learn about opportunities to join our private communities. We'd love to have you.